Hi Reparationists, it's Caroline with the Fund for Reparations Now, www.fundforreparationsnow.org. We are an intergenerational collective of white allies working under the National African American Reparations Commission to see the passage of federal reparations and to organize white money to pay reparations today. We are going to read through the executive summary of the California Reparations Report. It is 74 pages long, and in a sea of media and words, I don't want these words to go unread. This is an incredible report, the result of a 2-year process. California is leading the nation. At the end of the readings, we're going to have some embodiment. So I invite you to listen. I'm going to read the report to you, and then we'll come back and just take a minute to
Executive Summary,
with what we've read.
The California Reparations Report. Part 1, Recounting the Historical Atrocities. 1. Introduction and Background. The African American story in the United States is marked by repeated, failed promises to right the wrongs of the past, both distant and recent, and failure to acknowledge and take responsibility for the structural racism that perpetrated these harms. This report, crafted by the task force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans pursuant to its mandate under Assembly Bill 3121 from 2020, seeks to change this story with incontrovertible evidence of the harms requiring reparations and meaningful recommendations designed to redress them. The historical information and recommendations in this report are supported by extensive research and analysis, expert witness testimony, and testimony from those who have lived through the horrors and pursued the solutions that are addressed in this report. Taken together with the substantive analysis regarding international standards, local, state, federal, and international examples of reparations, methods for educating the public regarding the critical issues addressed herein, and a catalog of the racist laws and policies that cumulatively created this nation, this report is intended to satisfy the requirements of AB 3121 in an accessible and comprehensive manner that will facilitate progress towards finally enacting meaningful reparations for African Americans in California and the United States. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and in 1865, the states ratified the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which commanded that, quote, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States, end quote. In supporting the passage of the 13th Amendment, its co-author, Senator Lyman Trumbull of Illinois, said that, quote, it is perhaps difficult to draw the precise line to say where freedom ceases and slavery begins, end quote. The United States then experienced a 12-year period after the Civil War called Reconstruction, during which the federal government tried, with some success, to give newly freed African Americans access to basic civil rights. As just one example of the many ways in which this period reflected an expansion of rights, by 1868, more than 700,000 African American men were registered to vote in the former Confederate states. These advancements came to an abrupt end after the presidential election of 1876, when federal political leaders reached a compromise which resulted in the withdrawal of federal troops from key locations in the South, effectively ending Reconstruction. Later, in 1883, the United States Supreme Court interpreted the 13th Amendment as empowering Congress, quote, to pass all laws necessary and proper for abolishing all badges and incidents of slavery in the United States, end quote. However, other than during Reconstruction, instead of abiding by the Supreme Court's and the Constitution's mandates to abolish badges and incidents of slavery, the United States, federal, state, and local governments, including California, perpetuated and created new iterations of these badges and incidents. The resulting harms have been innumerable and have snowballed over generations. In 2020, through the enactment of Assembly Bill No. 3121, AB 3121, in the 2019-2020 session, California began the process of addressing its role in accommodating and facilitating slavery, perpetuating the vestiges of enslavement, propagating state-sanctioned discrimination, and tolerating persistent, systemic structures of discrimination on living African Americans across its systems of government at the local and state level. AB 3121 acknowledged that, as a result of this historic and continued discrimination, African Americans in California, especially those whose lineage can be traced to an enslaved person, continue to suffer economic, educational, and health hardships that have prevented them, as a people, from achieving equality. AB 3121 established the Task Force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans, with a special consideration for African Americans who are descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, and directed the task force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans taking into account A, the institution of slavery, including the federal and state governments that constitutionally and statutorily supported the institution of slavery. B, the legal and factual discrimination against freed slaves and their descendants from the end of the Civil War to the present, including economic, political, educational, and social discrimination. C, the lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery on living African Americans and on society in California and the United States. D, how instructional resources and technologies deny the inhumanity of slavery and the crime against humanity committed against people of African descent in California and the United States. E, the role of Northern complicity in the Southern-based institution of slavery, and F, the direct benefits to societal institutions, public and private, including higher education, corporate, religious, and associational. AB 3121 required the task force to recommend appropriate ways to educate the California public of the task force's findings, recommend appropriate remedies in consideration of the task force's findings, and submit to the legislature a report of its work. This is the task force's final report, incorporating and updating the contents of an interim report issued in June 2022. Part 1 of this report summarizes the harms caused by slavery and the lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery on descendants of persons enslaved in the United States and, more broadly, on living African Americans and on society in California and the United States. So thoroughly have the effects of slavery infected every aspect of American society over the last 400 years that it is nearly impossible to identify every badge and incident of slavery, include every piece of evidence, and describe every harm done to African Americans, and particularly to freed slaves and their descendants. In order to address this practical reality, chapters 1 through 13 describe a sample of government actions and the compounding harms that have resulted, organized into specific areas of systemic discrimination. In order to maintain slavery, government actors adopted white supremacist beliefs and passed laws to create a racial hierarchy and control enslaved and free African Americans. After the end of slavery, although the federal Constitution recognized African Americans as citizens on paper, the government failed to give them the full rights of citizenship and failed to protect African Americans from widespread terror and violence. Along with the dereliction of its duty to protect its African American citizens, direct federal, state, and local government actions continued to enforce the racist lies created to justify slavery. These laws and government-supported cultural beliefs have since formed the foundation of innumerable modern laws, policies, and practices across the nation. Today, 160 years after the abolition of slavery, its badges and incidents remain embedded in the political, legal, health, financial, educational, cultural, environmental, social, and economic systems of the United States of America. Racist, casteist, untrue, and harmful stereotypes created to support slavery continue to physically and mentally harm African Americans today, without a remedy specifically targeted to dismantle our country's racist foundations and heal the injuries inflicted by colonial and American governments. The badges and incidents of slavery will continue to harm African Americans in almost all aspects of American life.
That was just the first 2 pages. And for me, just reading these words is difficult. And so I want to invite you to make yourself as comfortable as you can be in your chair or however you're seated, and to just try to stay in your body, to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. For me, the things that stuck out were dereliction of duty and living African Americans. And so this is just a somatic practice to invite you to really use your body and your nervous system to incorporate the words that you've heard, and to really honor all of the people that put this task force together, and to allow yourself to be changed by this executive summary, by the publishing of this document and the process that the state of California is undertaking. We know that historically, as goes California, so goes the nation. And so this is a momentous moment. And let's be with it. Let's be with ourselves and be grateful to be here. So this is a great process for our state and for our nation. And I'll see you at the next installment.